Wow. You know, it's a quote that just instantly strips away all that Hollywood gloss and exposes this incredibly raw, devastating human reality. When the massive 2014 photo hack happened, it wasn't just some abstract technical breach. It was a visceral, unbelievable violation. The victims, who happened to be some of the most famous women in the world, were suddenly stripped of their privacy on a massive global scale. As Jennifer Lawrence put it so powerfully, the feeling wasn't just that her computer got hacked. No, it was this deeply traumatic, physical sense of violation by the entire world. Today, we're going to look at exactly how this nightmare actually unfolded. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to reverse engineer one of the most infamous cybercrimes in internet history. It's an event the media dubbed Celebgate, and the internet, well, they terribly named it the Fappening. But as we peel back the layers of this investigation for this explainer, you're going to see that this wasn't the work of criminal masterminds typing away in some high-tech neon-lit bunker. Actually, it's a detective story revealing a chillingly simple method and a dark digital underworld that is way more mundane than you'd ever expect. To really grasp the scale of what happened, we need to talk about this number right here. 100,000. So, on August 31st, 2014, a newly created subreddit was suddenly flooded with a massive influx of private, non-consensual nude photos. And these weren't just random folks. We're talking about the most elite actresses, models, and singers of the time. The internet's reaction? Absolutely explosive. In just 24 hours, that single subreddit gained over 100,000 followers. The images spread like an absolute wildfire across the web. They were viewed by millions, and it's just awful to think about, but for a brief moment, Jennifer Lawrence's stolen photos even ended up right on her Wikipedia page. But you see, this explosion on August 31st didn't just happen overnight out of nowhere. Let's move to and see how this builds. If we trace the breadcrumbs dropped throughout that month, a clear pattern emerges. On August 9th, Jennifer Lawrence started having weird difficulties logging into her iTunes and email. Then on August 20th, she got a strange alert about a login from Moscow. By August 26th, someone in a sketchy underground forum was already bragging about a quote-unquote major win. And finally, August 31st, the dam completely breaks with a massive Reddit leak. So when investigators and internet sleuths started tracking the origin of these photos, they realized Reddit was literally just the tip of the iceberg. They traced the leak backward from the mainstream internet all the way down to 4chan. Now, if you aren't familiar with 4chan, it's this massive anonymous internet forum. Back in 2014, it boasted over 22 million monthly users. It's basically an unmoderated Wild West where extremist and pornographic content just circulates freely. And as it turns out, the photos had actually appeared on 4chan days before that Reddit page was even a thought. But wait, the digital trail went even deeper into the shadows. Before they ever hit 4chan, the images actually surfaced on a site called AnonIB. This was another anonymous forum, but one heavily dedicated to the illegal distribution of non-consensual intimate images, stuff that's commonly, though kind of inaccurately, called revenge porn. It was right there, on AnonIB, on August 26th, that a user started bragging to the community. They claimed a few members had scored that major win we mentioned earlier, specifically explicit videos and pictures of the absolute biggest star in the world at the time, Jennifer Lawrence. What happened next on these forums was honestly like a perverse kind of gold rush. Scammers and collectors smelled big money. They started buying up sets of these stolen images, basically hoarding them as an investment to sell later. But their sick little business plan completely backfired. A user who later became known as Original Guy complained bitterly on the forum, saying, "People wanted stuff for free. I really didn't get close to what I was hoping." So despite months of effort acquiring these photos, the collectors ended up making practically nothing before someone just dumped the whole shebang online for anyone to see. Which brings up a huge question. Where did Original Guy and these other collectors get the photos in the first place? Well, they got them from a highly exclusive subforum hidden deep within AnonIB called /stol. This was a dark meeting place for a very small, very active group of users who spent literally years dedicating their time to stealing and trading private celebrity photos. And they operated on this twisted barter system. They rarely actually sold the photos. Instead, they traded them privately amongst themselves. To even get past the virtual bouncers into this exclusive group, you had to pay an admission fee. And that fee was providing a brand new, previously unseen stolen nude of a celebrity. Absolutely wild, right? Now, what's really interesting here is the staggering contrast of the men actually behind all of this. When you think of a hacker taking down the private accounts of Hollywood's elite,
You probably picture some highly sophisticated cybercriminal syndicate, right? But take a look at who the FBI actually found in this /stol group. Christopher Brandon, a teacher from Virginia. George Garofano, a bank teller from Connecticut. Ryan Collins and Edward Majorzik, both fathers. Emilio Herrera, a 29-year-old living with his parents in Chicago. These were incredibly mundane, ordinary men living completely average lives. Yet somehow, between the five of them, they managed to systematically infiltrate hundreds upon hundreds of private, highly sensitive accounts.
So, how on earth did a teacher and a bank teller pull this off? Well, initially, the entire world thought we were dealing with a catastrophic technological failure, because it quickly became clear that these photos originated from the victims' private iPhones. The immediate overwhelming public assumption was that Apple's iCloud data storage had a massive gaping security hole. And you know what? The victims totally thought so too. Actress Kirsten Dunst, whose private photos were also stolen in this leak, sarcastically tweeted, "Thank you, iCloud," just the day after the breach. Apple was immediately thrust into full-blown crisis mode. They launched an intense, top-to-bottom investigation into their servers to find out exactly how the cloud had been broken into. But just 2 days later, Apple released a statement that completely flipped the entire narrative of the investigation. They confirmed there was absolutely no security breach in Apple's actual systems. The servers, they held perfectly strong.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real, everyday danger in our digital lives. The public assumption was a highly sophisticated brute force breach of Apple's billion-dollar infrastructure, but the actual method? It was devastatingly simple. These ordinary guys didn't use advanced hacking software to crack Apple's code, no way. They used targeted phishing emails. They simply tricked the victims into willingly handing over their passwords. It was social engineering, plain and simple, not software engineering.
Let's walk through exactly how they did this, step by step, because it is shockingly easy. Step 1, they'd gather basic personal information about the targeted celebrity. And since these are public figures, things like their date of birth, their mother's maiden name, or even a pet's name, those are literally just a quick Google search away. Okay, so step 2. Armed with that info, they would send a very official-looking yet totally fake security email pretending to be from Apple or Google. The email would warn them of an unauthorized login to create a sense of urgency. Finally, step 3, when the panicked victim clicked the link to quote-unquote secure their account, they'd type in their password, completely unaware they were handing the keys to their digital life straight to the scammers.
So the crucial point here is how convincing, yet ultimately fake, these traps were. Take a look at the specific text Jennifer Lawrence received in mid-August. It warned her of a login from an unrecognized device in Moscow, right? It told her she needed to change her password immediately. But if you look closely, the red flags are there. The sender address was appleprivacysecurity@icloud.com, a custom email address spun up by a 29-year-old father in Chicago, definitely not Apple. And the link she was told to click was apple-security.serveusers.com, a completely fake URL. The whole thing was perfectly designed to induce panic and force a rapid, unquestioning reaction.
Once the FBI realized they were dealing with a massive phishing scheme, their digital manhunt rapidly accelerated. And boy, did they find a huge clue. Investigators uncovered a single IP address that was responsible for a truly staggering amount of traffic. Between May 2013 and August 2014, this one specific IP address was used to access over 500 different iCloud accounts exactly 2,362 times. Boom, the FBI had finally found their digital footprint. Then, on October 10th, they got the major breakthrough they desperately needed. The internet provider, AT&T, handed over the customer information attached to that specific IP address. And guess where it led? FBI agents went straight to this totally inconspicuous brick house on the south side of Chicago. This was the home of Emilio Herrera, the 29-year-old who lived with his parents. From that quiet house, he had been systematically infiltrating the deeply personal digital lives of hundreds of women. Following Herrera's trail, the FBI eventually tracked down the other 4 men. The teacher, the bank teller, the fathers. All 5 of them ended up pleading guilty to stealing the images and treating them within their twisted, super exclusive group. But here is the most frustrating, unsolved twist to this entire story. The FBI was completely unable to prove that any of these 5 men were the ones who actually published the photos to the wider masses on 4chan and Reddit. Because of that lack of proof, they received relatively light sentences. To this very day, no one has been convicted for the actual publication of the images and the true identity of the original leaker. It remains a total mystery. While the legal case closed with somewhat of a whimper, the social fallout was deeply, deeply disturbing. The public reaction was, at times, chillingly indifferent to the victims. I mean, people openly admitted on national television to seeking out the stolen photos. Commentators were literally raiding the women's bodies. It highlighted this gross, uncomfortable reality. The perpetrators may have stolen the photos, sure, but millions of everyday people eagerly consumed them. They treated the privacy of these women as if it were worth absolutely nothing, simply because they happened to be famous. It was, in many ways, a secondary violation, carried out by the public itself. So, what this entire saga leaves us with is a really sobering reality check. The 2014 hack was not some elaborate, highly sophisticated, impossible-to-stop cyber attack. It was simple human manipulation, and that means it can be stopped with remarkably simple precautions. We're talking about using a strong, unique password for every account, turning on two-factor authentication, or 2FA, so a password alone just isn't enough to get in. And honestly, most importantly, maintaining a very healthy distrust of unknown links or any security emails trying to induce panic. Take a breath before you click. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. We so often assume that only highly advanced technology can break through our digital walls, but as we've clearly seen, human psychology is the actual weak point. If an ordinary teacher or a bank teller from the suburbs can completely shatter the privacy of the world's most elite, heavily resourced celebrities using nothing more than a few deceptive emails, are you absolutely sure you are doing enough to protect your own digital life? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and really, take a moment right now to go check those security settings. I'll see you next time.
Click the subscribe button. Then, click the bell icon and select all to get every notification.